agree with you. And I think a lot of people have a misconception about like coaching. And coaching is such a broad term because there's all like, by the way, anybody can call themselves a coach. That doesn't mean that they are, right? And I didn't know enough about like coaching as a profession um until I went into the program, right? After I had paid my tuition, and got into it, I didn't really fully understand what it was, but I'm really grateful. It was more than what I anticipated, right? Coaching is not therapy, but it can be therapeutic. And as a matter of fact, like one of the people in my cohort, she made the comment one time. She's like, I've been in coaching, or I mean, I've been in therapy for 20 years, and I've got more out of this 30-minute coaching conversation than I did out of 20 years of therapy. And I thought, wow, like that's a testimony right there. Um, but it is not therapy because coaches are not there to diagnose. They are not there to go into your childhood. I mean, we can talk about it, but we're not here to look for root cause. Essentially, coaches are there to help you explore what you are wanting to do and figure out like outcomes and evoke awareness around like maybe what you're feeling or why you have patterns of behavior, finding new ways of looking at things, and really tapping into maybe conversations you wouldn't have with somebody else or you wouldn't feel safe to have with anybody else. And so, um, as a coach, one of the things that we really try to do is we try to hold space for you in the way that you can answer the questions without judgment. So as coaches, we have no skin in the game. Whether you succeed or fail is 100% on you, which by the way, for me as a coach is freaking liberating. Like I'm not responsible for your outcome. You are responsible for your outcome. I'm responsible for creating the right environment. I'm responsible for cultivating trust, for helping you, again, explore and think about what you're thinking about. But at the end of the day, the responsibility for change really lies on the person who's being coached. And so from a coach perspective, that's why I see the scam. It's not a scam, but that's just the funny way I think about it because I don't have to do any follow-up. It's up to you to hold yourself accountable. And that might be, by the way, one of the coaching questions is how do you want to hold yourself accountable? What are your steps and how are you going to follow through on this decision that you've made? But for on the being coach, on the coach's perspective, I have had tremendous insight into me that I would have and I've had these conversations with friends and family members, but being coached by someone who doesn't already have preconceived notions about me or knows my history or knows my personality or knows my challenges or whatever it is, having someone just ask me questions to really make me think about me, it's I can't even think of the word for it. I learned more about myself in these coaching sessions than I think I ever could have otherwise. Like it just gives you so much insight. It's like a really good coach holds a mirror up to you and you figure your stuff out. And it's different than if you were to think about it yourself because you are limited to your own limiting beliefs and you believe that, I don't know how most people are, but most of us believe everything we think. And so if I think a certain way, I'm like, I'm justified in this. And here's all the reasons I'm justified. But having this other party really hold that mirror to you and say, well, what makes you believe that to be the truth? And what else could be true? You're like, huh, and now you're forced to think about things in maybe a different way or let go of some of those limiting beliefs that hold you back. It's powerful. I mean, I'm not a crier, Carl, but I used to joke with my coaches, it's not a coaching session until I'm crying because I cried almost every freaking time I cried and I'm not a crier. So that to me was a testament to how powerful coaching can be. That you really have to like shed your armor for lack of a better word, using Brene Brown language here, but you really have to shed your armor and be vulnerable but that vulnerability feels safe for me, at least with the coaches I've had. It feels safe because you know there's no judgment attached to it. So you can really kind of expose those dark spots that maybe you haven't thought about and the things that have kept you from getting what you want or being who you want, which is just, I don't know, life changing. My life has changed tremendously, by the way. In just the span of a year, my life has changed tremendously. And I really do attribute coaching to that. Both being a coach and being coached has helped me really think about and see life in a very different way.
What's one way that it's changed?
One of the ways that it's changed for me, what a great coaching question, Carl. You're trapping me in your coaching questions. No, but one of the ways I think for me that it's changed is that I really got to hone in to what direction I wanted my life to be in. And I'll share it here. Um, I have been hustling since I was like 15, right? Trying to make money. Like my career path, my career path, I haven't had tons of jobs. I'm loyal, I've been very loyal to my professions, but like my very first job, I worked in an arcade. And then I worked in a taco truck for a couple years. Yes, that was my very first job. I worked in a taco truck slinging tacos. And then I got a job right out of high school. I got a job as a customer service representative for Pacific Bell. If that doesn't make me old, I don't know what will. And so I worked for this call center for like 5 years, answering phone calls for Singular Wireless after a while. It went from Pac Bell to Singular Wireless. That doesn't make me old. I don't know what does. And then I went from there right into the county. I started with the county in like my very early 20s, and I just stayed there I was with my first county for 10 years, and then I moved to I moved, physically moved, so I had to move to another county. And I stayed there until I got the job as an instructor. And I've been an instructor ever since. So again, very loyal to my professions. Um, so with that being said, being the hustler, my goal is always to make enough money to be successful, like be able to maintain housing and raise my kids and, maybe go on vacation. I was never a big vacationer, like long vacations. I was a road tripper. I'm a weekend road tripper because that's what I could afford, right? So when I thought about the future, I didn't really think about the future in like a grand way. It was like, I'll work till I retire, and then once I retire, I'll figure things out. And like through the coaching, what I realized is that I wasn't satisfied in just working. That like my identity was not just my profession. And that was something that was very new to me that, yeah, but that's where I spend my time. My all of my energy goes into what I do. All the books I read have everything to do with what I do. My personal life revolves around my work schedule. Like I can't tell you how many times I've like bailed on family stuff because I had a gig, right? Like my poor husband had surgery on his foot, and I was like, well, brought you back from the hospital, and here's your medication, and here's some fruit and some water. I'll leave it right here on the nightstand, and I'll be back in a week because I'm booked for the week. And your foot surgery, where you can't walk by yourself, really is an inconvenience to my work life, you know? Like, who the hell does that? Right? But that was my identity, and that's who I was. And so the coaching really helped me see past that I don't have to live to work and that there was more to life than that. And this is where I had to envision, like, what do I want my future to look like? And believe it or not, I don't know if I've told you this story before, Carl, but I was super overwhelmed. I had no idea how much work this coaching program was. I really thought we would go to class Friday and Saturday, and that was it. I didn't anticipate homework. I didn't anticipate coaching hours. Like I didn't take any of this into account when I signed up for this program. And so I found out very quickly that it was more than I anticipated and I had to make it work, right? I had to make it work. And so I was really overwhelmed very quickly with the amount of time I needed to be able to be successful here. And so um, towards like the end of the course, I was burned out. And I remember coming into class on a Saturday and I was mentally, physically, emotionally spent. Like just I had nothing to give. I was present, but I was not present. And so I remember like we do a lot of group activities and discussions, and I just told everybody like, don't expect anything out of me today. I'm here, but just leave me alone, you know? And that's not who I am, by the way. That's just I just was spent though. I had nothing left. I was every ounce of my being was exhausted. And so that day, believe it or not, the damn topic was wellness. So we were working on wellness, and I thought, oh, God, this is what I need right now, but I don't even have like the capacity to take this in because I'm just hanging by a thread. And so one of the things that we did that day is we did a guided meditation. And I remember she made us close our eyes, which I was like, oh, thank God, my eyes are so tired. Because I mean, again, I'm physically, emotionally, spiritually just spent. So through this guided meditation, we had to imagine ourselves in 20 years. And so she took us through these prompts and what are you wearing? What does it smell like? What does it look like? And so I have this whole vision of where I lived and what I was doing and who I was. And I started sobbing, sobbing. And I'm not saying like a tear fell. I'm talking ugly Kim Kardashian crying, Kimmy K tears, like boogers coming down my face. Like it was awful. A floodgate opened and I could not close that floodgate. I was bawling. And we go into groups after that and we have to talk. And they're like, why are you crying? I said, everything I imagined for myself in 20 years, I was peaceful, I was calm, I was grounded, I was surrounded by, books. I was like living the life I wanted to. I'm none of those things today. None of them. And I am doing a disservice to who I am in 20 years living like this. Like everything I want to be, I'm none of those things, and I need to figure that out. And so that from that day forward, I decided I was going to live for who I wanted to be in 20 years. And so in my meditation, I imagined I was living in Mexico, bought a house in Mexico. And now I'm surrounded by books and I'm like peaceful and I let go of a lot of like my own self-imposed need to always be busy and to always be productive and to always be working, to just saying, you know what, work is part of my life. It's not my whole life. And I really set some boundaries around how much I wanted to work. I stopped working Fridays, like you. Like that was one of the things I said, I'm not going to do classes on Fridays unless I really, really have to. And although I did tell myself like, oh, I'm going to do administrative work on those days, that proved to be a lie. The results are back from that, and that's a lie. Fridays are fun day Fridays, and Fridays I live my best life. And you know what? I wouldn't change it. Someday that might change, but right now I'm making up for lost time, and I've really been enjoying time off and being present and doing things that bring me joy versus just working all of the time. The work will come. The work will come. It'll be fine. But at some time I'm gonna die, and I don't want to die with regrets that I didn't live while I was alive. And so I'm living. I'm living, drinking my sparkling water. So that's how it changed me. It
That's
gave me that insight that my worth does not come from my work. My worth comes from my life. My life deserves to be lived. Period.
check that water, y'all. But
It really, it's just Topo Chico. I promise you. This is not after dark. This is not after dark. It's just water.
cool. Yeah, I think it's helped me in those coaching sessions. One of the things that really came out was, I just, you have to think of different things you want to talk about. And I said, you know, I want to be a better self-promoter. Why do I, how do I promote this and get this and just with the questions that my coach, fellow coach was asking me, it made me realize I don't really want to promote myself and I don't need to promote myself anymore than what I already have. I'm at that point now where, I'm, luckily knock on IKEA particle wood, right? I'm at that point where things are kind of filling up and I don't have to be that hustle. You stayed in one job since you were 15, one job at a time at 15. I usually had three or four different jobs, from the time I was 17, right? And I would, when I was 19 and 20, I would work at Price Club. That's how old I am, Price Club, right? Before Costco. And until from 10 to 6:30, then I'd run over and security guard a game for the San Jose Sharks at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And then after that game was over, I would rush over to Beale Street, which was a club in the city, and work till 2 in the morning, and then get up and work 11 to 6 at Price Club the next day. I mean, that was just my usual Saturdays, Sundays. Right. And I was used to that. And that, I mean, it's always been like that, as a trainer, and especially when you hang your own shingle, you know, right now, I think I work for five or six different people, I mean, I work for three people where I get a pay stub and then, some other places that, I through my own business. But what I'm realizing is even if, I I've always wanted to have that ability. My top five values are impact, making a difference, right? Independence, loyalty, learning, and happiness, right?
Mhm.
And I feel, I get to make a difference every time I'm in a class, every time we have these subjects and we talk about them, right? Learning. I learn something new every time I learn a new topic to talk about in a class, and I learn in the class from other people in the
Yeah.
class who are subject matter experts in their own lives, right? Um, and loyalty, I have five or six different, places I work, but three of them I've worked full time, there. And when I left full time, I still do work for them, right? I mean, my grandma never taught me never burn a bridge. And that's definitely played out for me very well. And, a couple other places I work for are from recommendations of folks who used to work for me and used to work with me, right? And so I recognize that, right? And then um independence, I get to make my own schedule, right? And I'm not tied to a cubicle. Yeah, I do a lot of work at my desk, but I can also get up and you know run to Marshall's with my wife if she wants me to, and then come back and work on this paper, 10 o'clock at night if I want to, right? Or work on this class, so I get to make my own schedule, right? So those things are so, and happiness. I mean, all of these things combined, it really makes me happy. And so here I am, you know, saying that thing and the coach, she said, well, you know, what do you hear yourself saying? Which is my favorite coaching question, by the way. What do you hear yourself saying? And I said, I'm saying that I don't need to promote, that I'm doing fine. And, which makes me think, why do I have that feeling? Which made me think about the idea of I've always been a hustler. I've always, had to, had the house note, had the two-car notes and, supported people, supported my child and my extended families and my marriages. And, you know, always, especially, I don't know, maybe just especially with me, that the idea of being the man of the house, trying to be responsible and whatnot. But I have to give myself credit and I have to set boundaries for my own happiness, which is I'm at that point now, which is what I'm able to do. Um, and so, living towards those values. And I can tell you, Tiff, when I first started doing those value questions, my values were, I family, honesty, integrity, right? And, those things, that I think people who are parents, a lot of people
Mhm.
feel like that's what you should be doing. And why aren't you saying those things? Right. And
Right.
but but me having impact provides for my family. Me being happy provides for my family in a way that I've never been able to, right? And me being independent and sticking with that. All right, I've had off and on again, chances to go out on my own. And the idea of I need to get medical, I need to get this, I need to take, I have a daughter, it's a single dad, I got to take care of, and things like that. It's always held me back. And now I'm at the point where, that stuff doesn't have to hold me back. And if something comes, then we can deal with it. And I don't have to have that fear of that, the mindset, the poverty mindset, right?
Right.
So it definitely is something that I know and it really helped me just in that one session, just a half an hour practice session helped me realize, all these things you talk about how to promote. I mean, you're doing pretty darn good right now. I mean, do you really need to promote? And if so, if not, why do you feel that? I need to give myself more credit. And so it was definitely something that I've learned and grown in as a person just from being coached, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
I
huge.
agree. I think for me, the reason why coaching is so effective is especially for adults. Adults and young adults, I think are like the most coachable. Like if I so if I had a preference, so for anybody listening, if you want to create an opportunity, um, I think young people, like 17 to say 24-year olds, are probably the for me the most opportune group to be coachable. And the reason I really gravitate towards the 17 to 24-year olds is because they, at this point, have been so used to being told what to do that they're not sure how to do things by themselves or they don't have the confidence in their own thought process. I think coaching is prime for that age group of young adults who are trying to figure out their own ideas, values, goals, whatever it is, without any pressure from the outside of what they're interested in, who they want to be, etc. And so for me as a professional coach, as much as I see a need of 17 to 24-year-olds, they're also the ones that have the least amount of money to pay for coaching. So it's really hard for them to access those services because it's not something like therapy that's covered by insurance or it's covered by a third party unless someone sponsors them or there's a grant for it. So anybody who wants to sponsor coaches or like I like coming from a human services background, I always think about the kids who are aging out of foster care as like a prime opportunity group of people who could really benefit from coaching. Again, that group has been told their whole life what to do from social workers, from judges, from foster parents, from group homes, or whatever intervention methods they've had. They haven't had a lot of control and choice in their own lives. And so this would be a really great space to have some non-clinical interventions to help them really decide who they want to be and how they want to live their lives outside of our systems without the judgment, without the sign this form, here are the guidelines, here are your options, but really helping them figure things out. So for me, that group is prime, but again, they don't have any money. So where I find myself coaching is again professionals, people who are looking to improve their skill sets. Maybe they have a specific problem they're trying to work through, or they're trying to, gain confidence or master interpersonal relationships at work and etc. That's where the money is at, and it's helpful. I wish that again there was like something that was available for that age group. Maybe that's something I'll work on later on down the road, but we're not there yet. I'm remember this year I'm living my life. So, but again, it's a prime opportunity. But I think the magic again of coaching is that it really does put people in a space to figure things out without being told. I don't like to be told what to do. I don't know how you are, Carl, but I'm a person that if you're like, you have to do this, I'm like, actually, I'm not gonna do that because you told me, right? Even if I know it's the right thing to do, even though I know it's probably, the right direction, but if you're mandating it, I'm gonna resist at least initially, because I hate to be told what to do as an adult. You need to do this. Well, you need to kick rocks. So what's up? What's up? Like, meet me there. So I think that's why coaching is so effective, is because it puts people in the driver's seat of their own life, where you're really interested in what they want, and they feel like that confidence that they're making the right decision in what they want. And there's no judgment. And again, figuring it out. Like, you still ask curious questions. So, if somebody's like, oh, I want to be a neurosurgeon, and you're like, okay, great. So you've got an eighth grade education. Like, what steps do you need to take to get there? Like, you can still have real conversations with them about like their goals. It's not like, well, neurosurgeon, let's go, let's get there. We can explore it a bit and help them create a pathway for that. And again, what's going to hold you back, and what what things in your life have to change to get you there. We still are going to ask those questions, but we're not giving the answers. They have to come up with their own answers. And so for me, like, there's benefits that come from the coaching session, but I also think it changes the dynamic where we're not building dependency, we're building capacity. So I'm not solving the problem for you. What I'm helping you do is figure out how to um, self-reflect and engage in your own like internal coaching conversations, where you're developing like that questioning pathway where you can figure out these things more effectively on your own a little bit on down the road. Like, I don't know, do you find yourself coaching yourself from time to time, Carl? I don't know if you're there yet, but have you found yourself coaching yourself?
Oh yeah, always. Where are
Yeah,
you? What are you doing? Right? Is this
yeah.
what you want to be
Why
doing?
are you
Right?
thinking this way? Yeah,
Mhm. Absolutely.
yeah.
But I I don't want to piggyback, but kind of
Huh.
springboard off what you're talking about. You were talking about kids and how it's a good age group. I think what I'm finding in my experience is any group is a good age group. And the
Mhm.
reason is because, kids don't want to be told what to do. They want to make stuff up, they want to, make their own determinations. How many adults do you know that, adults with their own families, their own houses, their own retirement funds that are still in limited thinking, right? And
Yeah,
that are in limited beliefs. I believe it's a huge issue in government service, right? And I'm finding that out on a regular basis and working with a lot of my clients in government service. I mean, government service is very hierarchical, right? And you do not, break the chain of command. Whenever something is done, people look and say, okay, are they going to support it? And sometimes people wait until the person above them is able to make a decision before they ever make a decision, which affects how many different people. So the further you go up, you
right.
go, the more of a need there is for us to be able to self-coach, right? But I mean, I interact with clients who you know, don't necessarily haven't necessarily thought out an entire process. Oh, I got this problem. I got this problem. Staff, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and I don't know what to do. And I wish I could just get rid of them. Okay, well, have you talked to them about it? Yeah, I've told them that they need to do this and they need to do that, and they're not hearing me. I said, okay, well, have you documented it? Well, no, no, I've just been talking to them about it. Okay, well, okay, so what do you think you're telling them by talking to them and nothing's following through? That you're just going to, that I'm just a nag. Okay, well, what do you want? I'd like to hold them accountable. How can you hold them accountable? What part of this is something that you can control, right? Next thing, if it's such an issue, have you talked to HR about it? No, no. Well, in my head, I'm thinking, why are you talking to me if you haven't talked to HR?
Right.
And I mean, what do you think if you were to talk to HR about the situation? What do you think you would want to know? Oh, I'd want to know what I can do, what the next steps are, how to process this. Okay, okay. So how will that help you in this situation? Well, it'll give me some structure and some understanding of what the next steps are to help hold that person accountable. Okay. So what's been stopping you? Oh, I don't I just didn't necessarily want to escalate it without it, going to that next level. This person's got a family. Okay, well, How important is it to you to be able to change that behavior, right? Why is it important to change that behavior, right? Well, other staff see this and they're shorthanded, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is something that's improving your staff, that's hindering your staff performance. Yeah, okay, so how would helping this person conform to your ideals or your expectations? And then question, what expectations do you have for your staff? Oh, they should already know this. They've already been here. Okay. Well, so, when you went into your last job, what expectations did you have from your boss? Well, I had to be on time. I had to do this. I had to do that. I learned everything ahead of time. Right. So we live on assumptions. We work on assumptions. We're going to do a class. We're going to do a session on bias pretty soon, I'm sure. And which is all about assumptions, all about those things that we do that, our brain makes up. And one of them is you should know what I know. And if we live on that, and how do we know what we know? We are what we repeatedly do. And if we had people who have trained us, have taught us, have been our supervisors who did not provide us support and guidance in helping us to perform, and we still powered through it, well, it worked for me. I don't know how many
Mhm.
times I hear that. I didn't have all this, you know, one-on-one sessions when I was coming up, and I've said this multiple times, so you don't have to hear me say it again. But so if you did not have one-on-one sessions coming up, then why is it going to benefit this person? They're just soft. Well, you know, what brain science has come out since your what have the stats said? Since you came up and were in a non-supervisor position, right? And so there's a lot of things that we take that have happened in the past and we just project it when our brain looks for what's going to happen. When our brain tries to predict the future, it bases it a lot of it on the past because that's what we know. And so, you know, we can't make that assumption. You and I, you grew up, in different places. I grew up in the Bay Area, right? I grew up in San Francisco. We had a different upbringing, right? We had, different things that, we how we came about who we are, and the people that are around us and our families and everything else like that, right? We might share some of the same values, but are we the same people? Can I just read your mind? Can you read your mind, right? I mean, you have brothers and sisters, right? I mean, can you read their minds, right? Accurately, 100%, right? And so
Yep.
that's the thing, right? So it's something to recognize when you grew up, especially those folks who've been there for 28, 30 years, right? Who have listened to people say, do this, you need to do this, you have to do this, and wait for my okay. And, just suck it up and you're not going to get any bonuses. Just be glad you have a job, right? And those things like that happen in government service. You get that 70% of folks who are just who are disengaged, right? And so what can you do to help that group of people to be engaged, right? Especially when you're not getting the bonuses, when you're not getting those things that a lot of people look for, uh, in private sector jobs, right? But being there for somebody, helping them through the situation, is really important. And that's what I do for a lot of these senior leaders I'm talking to. So how are you having these conversations? What have you told them about what you expect? Right? What steps have you taken to improve performance? Or is it just a bitch session? If it's just a bitch session, cool, go ahead and bitch for a while. Then we can come back and talk about this later. I get it. But if you're asking me, what should I do about it? What have you done about it? And what would you like to do about it? And what steps can you take to go from what you've done about it to what you want to do about it? I guarantee you, your code of conduct way better than I do. And if you don't, why are you in your job? So it really is powerful for folks who have been taught to wait and move quickly when you're told to, right? And And I see it all the time. You know, I don't know if you see this, Tiff, but you know, if you've worked with people, as I do a lot of coaching with students, so folks who have
Mhm.
been in my classes, and I do a lot of leadership academies for the state. And then we get in a coaching session, and they say, "Oh, you know, so the one-on-one sessions we were talking about, you're saying how important they are. How do I do them, right? Or you know, how should I schedule them?" And so we have a conversation. What's your schedule look like, right? You know, and you know what are the things that you what should I put in what things are important for you to put in the agenda. Well, I'd like to know their status. I'd like to know what they're working on. Okay, well, that sounds great. Right, and so as much as I know there's folks who need molding at a young age, there's a lot of folks who have had a lot of bad habits, from people over the years and have been left on to their own devices. Right. And it's something people don't think about. I was working with somebody who became, a very senior leader in a State Department who said, I got no training for this role. I was in the role below. And when I got promoted, they said, well, you've been a leader, so you know this stuff. We'll let you have it. It's a different job. Now, rather than just running this one department, I'm overseeing three departments and two of them I don't know. Right. But you just want me to figure this out on my own. So it's we make a lot of assumptions about what people should know and how they should act. And coaching really helps to address those assumptions and bring them to light. What is it that I really do know? Which can be a humbling experience.
Yeah, for sure. No, I do agree with you that all people can benefit from coaching. All people. Um, I work a lot with executives as well, and um, I think one of the things that helps with executive coaching is that it's very lonely at the top. Okay. And I say that with all the love in my heart, but imagine being like a CEO or an executive director and you're struggling. Like, who do you talk to about that? Right. You can't go to your peers or your reports and say, I'm really struggling. I have no idea what I'm doing. But in the space and the safety of coaching, you do have that safe space to, I'm really struggling. I'm not sure what direction to go. And you can figure it out without, again, fear of retribution, fear of judgment. Because it's hard for people. Who do you go to when you're at the top? Who do you go to and say, I need some support? And so that's really what our role as coaches is. We didn't get into today the mechanics of coaching, which I would love to maybe explore a little bit more on another podcast to really think if coaching, if you'd like to take more of a coach approach in the work that you do, I think it's an important concept and it is a skill set. It is a skill set. So it's something that you have to learn. It's not just something that you do. There's actual competencies that come with coaching. There's practices, there's best practices, there's ethical considerations with coaching that you have to learn. And this is not to say that Carl and I can teach you how to be a great coach. But what I am saying is that even in the workplace, there is a great a great amount of coaching you could do from a leadership perspective that helps with the disengagement. It helps engage people. It helps people develop their own critical thinking. It helps them align with the organizational goals. It helps them think about their own behaviors and choices and values. There's a lot of benefit to coaching, or at least taking a coach approach from a leadership perspective. And also, it helps, if you all remember from one of our first episodes, we talked a lot about the drama triangle. And again, a lot of leaders fall into that rescuer role, and coaches, being a coach is the opposite or the alternative to being a rescuer and creating dependency in your workforce and in the people that you work for. So um, I know I'm a fan. I might be a little bit biased in that assessment as a professional coach, but again, as someone who's been coached, it's definitely made monumental changes in my life in just having someone help me think about what I'm thinking about and being able to ask me those questions that make me get beyond what I already believe to be true and explore that a bit more. And I wish that for everybody, no matter who you are, you know, no matter who you are. So,
Yeah. And real quick before well, one thing we can talk about, we will continue this conversation. But I think we've really laid a good groundwork of, you know, what coaching is and how it's benefited folks. We can get into the technical aspects for sure, um, which is a lot more than just a 2 hour podcast, right?
Right.
But one thing that is important to recognize is that coaching and mentoring are two different things.
For sure.
And so you can be a coach and you can be a mentor, but to be a coach is not the same as a mentor. You can wear both
Right.
hats. You just have to wear one at a time, right? A mentor is somebody who has done your job or can provide you, stories or tips on how to do your job well, or, hey, you're feeling this. Okay, I felt that too. And this is what I did in those situations. And there are some times where I think a lot of those folks that I have taught in a class and that I do coach afterwards, they are looking for mentorship, or at least that's what they expect because in a class, I'm leading them in discussions, right? Um, but there's a difference, right? A mentor
Right.
can, provide those tips and advice. A coach is someone who is helping you to build that capacity to be able to see if you have those tips and advice within yourself. And if that's something that you can do on your, you build capacity, right? If you are a leader and you have a team full of folks who are waiting for you to tell them what to do, how do you ever go on vacation? Right?
Exactly.
You're sitting at the pool with the Mai Tai in one hand and your cell phone in the other, waiting for the next bomb to drop at work. When you have a team full of folks who you have coach to where they can be problem solvers on their own and they build their own capacity. You can have a Mai Tai in one hand, a daiquiri in the other, or you can have the Mai Tai in one hand and apply suntan lotion to your wife's or your spouse's back and not have to
Or a stranger
worry.
if that's what you're into. Or a stranger. I'm just
Hey,
saying there's
hey,
no limits here.
we all got our kinks, right? But I always tell people if you are building a team full of problem solvers, you don't have to worry about the building burning down when you're not there.
Right.
Right. And that's definitely, a benefit. If we can build that capacity in other folks, right, where they feel like, hey, my boss has helped me to get there, right? And I don't have to wait on them. I can make a decision, a pretty sound decision. If something needs to be tweaked, something needs to be tweaked. Right. I had a couple of different work when I was a supervisor for the county. I had one guy who used to come in, hey, is this okay? Did I do this okay? Am I supposed to be able to do this? What should I do next? And I had somebody else who would come in, hey, Carl, I'm just gonna let you know I was sitting with this client and she was talking about this. So I went ahead and did this because, of what the regs say and what the rules say and how we've done things before. If it comes back weird, just let me know and I'll take care of it. But I just wanted to let you know that I took care of this. I didn't want to burden you with it. Right. None of his stuff ever came back weird, right? I mean, but he had also had a lot of leadership experience. So he was the chief of Edwards Air Force Base for a long time, right? The highest enlisted ranked man on the soldier on the base. So he had a lot of leadership training, a lot of leadership experience where you figure things out, but to build that capacity. If you don't have a team full of folks who can figure things out when you're not there, or at least the basics to be able to move forward, if the cogs stop working when you're gone, is it your staff or is it something else that you can do to help them
Yeah.
with that? And that is a huge question in coaching. Right.
It's funny. That's like one of the questions I ask, when we do trainings, our trainings are usually like a whole day is like 6 hours plus lunch. So let's say 7 hours total shift,
Love it. Love it.
a shift, part of a shift. And so when I have leaders in there and they have to have their laptops open and their cell phones right next to them, just in case, I always say, it's kind of like a running joke. If you have to have your cell phone out this whole time, if you can't be comfortable in a 6 hour training, without being attached to your devices, you might be a rescuer. And that always kind of gets their attention
Mhm.
because if your staff doesn't know what to do, because you're gone for 6 hours, you might have a dependency problem, and that's part of the job of the coach is to illuminate and again point that mirror and show, have those insights where people can really recognize their own contributions to their dynamic and then decide if that's something that they want to continue. So, um, again, huge fan. I'll be Coach Tiff forever. I will be coaching. I love it so much. I coached on vacation. I don't know if I told you that already, but I was in Hawaii. My mom, bless her heart. But my mom loves to tell everybody she ever meet, oh, this is my daughter, and she does all this stuff. So somehow we were at a beach in Hawaii and we met this guy and my mom was of course telling him what I do and he's like, oh, I could use a coach. And I said, well, I'm here, let's do it. And I ended up coaching him through this question or through this situation. And he kept asking me, what should I do? I just need you to tell me what I should do. And I said, dude, I'm not living your life. I don't even know you. Like how how can I ever tell you what the right thing to do is in your life? I have no idea. I know what I might do, but I don't live your life. And so remember I told you we started today at that question that makes people like lean back and really think. I told him, here's the question I'm going to ask you. If in 5 years from today I come back to this beach and you're sitting at the same beach at the same picnic table, are you going to be satisfied with your life? And that was the question that made him go, oh, you know what? Let me think about that. And I said, perfect. So that's really what us coaches really what our goal is to plant the seed for you to think about what you really want and to find out how to get there. If you have a coach telling you what you're supposed to do, they're not coaching you. It's not a good coach.
And,
Instead, you can find what
go
I
ahead.
would say. I would say you can always you're ready for my shameless plug. You can always find me at www.givingthegiftcoaching.com to schedule a free consultation for a coach. And I know that you can also reach Carl as well for any coaching services, but it really does make a difference. And most coaches, by the way, before you pay any money, most of them will meet with you first to see if you're a good fit and if they're going to be a good fit for you. And so, if what you've been doing hasn't been leading you to the results that you want, then coaching might be the right step for you. And if you're looking for a different career path where maybe you can have the impact that you want without having that pressure of always having the right answers, I would also recommend coaching as a profession because it's very, very fulfilling um, from a personal and professional aspect of it. And you really do have a huge impact on people's lives without having to, again, come up with any answers, which I think is, again, it's a scam, but it's a great scam. It's a great pyramid scheme, great pyramid scheme.
So, Tiff, do you have, I told you my favorite coaching question, which is, what do you hear yourself saying? What's a great coaching question that you have that you really love?
One of my favorite coaching questions is what else could be true? That's like one of my go-tos, especially for people who have already kind of made up their mind about the situation and they're really stuck in their limiting beliefs. I love to ask the question, what else could be true? And make them think of alternatives. That's one of my favorites. But honestly, um, with that being one of my go-to, um, without having a specific question, my favorite question is always the one that make people sit back and go, huh. That's my favorite coaching question. And it's different for every person based on their situation, but it's that one good question that just knocks the air out of them and shakes their foundation of what they've been believing. I'm telling you, I'm like smoking fake cigarettes, like so good. That's why I get energized. That's like the high that I seek in every coaching session, that moment of real ground shaking whatever it is. And you don't get it every time, just to be honest. You don't get it in every coaching session, but when you have really built that trust and you're really getting into the deepness of whatever the challenge is, there's always that one question that just shakes everything and flips a light switch and it's a strobe light and it gets them moving. Oh, that's a high. That's the best high in the world. I tell you what, that's when I'm just like this. I love it. That's my favorite coaching question.
And to be continued for sure,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, and we will revisit this. We'll get into some of those specifics. We'll talk about those coaching questions. You know, we gave you a couple and we'll talk about open-ended questions. We'll go through, I mean, we should probably just have a complete active listening conversation, you
Hmm.
know, with that, and also some of those specifics and things like the rule of four and when to give
Competency.
advice, when to give
Yeah.
what to do if somebody wants you to put on your mentor hat, right? And what happens if you see somebody who really might benefit more from therapy at the moment than coaching, right? And that's actually
Yeah.
one of our competencies that we learned, right? To be able
Yeah.
to, identify when somebody maybe needs more than just a coaching session, right? So there's a lot more to it, and we can definitely revisit it. Um, but for now, do you have any final hot tips, Tiff, or any questions?
My only hot tip is this. Don't believe everything you think, right? Don't believe everything you think. And if nothing else, coaching can start like internally and being willing to like go beyond your surface level of like, why do I think this way? What else could be true? What's leading me to these judgments? How could I think about this differently? Like anytime you're problem solving, to just go beyond what you already like, whatever your natural instinct. And by the way, your natural instinct is not always a bad thing, but explore a little bit before you land on a conclusion. If you can self-coach yourself and just really engage in thinking about how you're thinking, if you can get that coach mentality for you, then it's going to be way easier for you to do with other people. And so I think that's always the first. Start with you. Just be more curious. Don't be so judgmental. I always compare this to like Jiminy Cricket. Do you remember from Pinocchio? The good and the bad. Like you have curiosity and you have judgment. And if you're listening to judgment, you're not going to be curious. And so I'm going to just say, be curious, my friends. Ask yourself some questions. Coach you before you coach others. It really does make a difference.
And the last one I'll add to that is you are the subject matter expert in your life.
Yeah.
There's way too many people telling people what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. There might be things that you should be doing and you should be doing differently, sure. But if they don't, if they haven't helped you to understand why you aren't doing those or that you don't want to do those, there's other things you want to do when people are telling you that you should be doing something else, don't be shit on, folks.
Yeah.
Don't be shit on. Okay. John Parker, I love you. Captain John, R, right? Don't be shit on. When people
Yep.
try to tell you what you should be doing, really think about what I should be doing
Right.
and what works for me. You are the subject matter expert in your life, and the decisions that you make about your life are going to affect you. And unless it's family or someone close, it ain't gonna affect them very much. They're gonna get their money and leave.
Yep.
How does this affect you? And if you are in a leadership position or in a coaching position, the person sitting across from you is the subject matter expert in their life. And I didn't just say work, in
Right.
their lives. If there's a work issue, there might be a work performance issue. There also might be a fact that that person is a human being who might have other things going on that we haven't taken the time to scratch the surface on. So be curious, absolutely, like Tiff said. But just remember, how do we get them to identify what's going on so that they have a better chance of figuring out how they can best solve it?
Yep.
That's how you
Yep.
keep the scam going. So,
That's right. And I'm gonna say Worry about yourself. Worry about yourself. That's going to be my number one hot tip. Worry about yourself. Let other people worry about themselves. I like the don't get shit on, and I also say don't should shit on everybody else. So worry about yourself, right? That's the place where you have the most control. And so, again, if you're having a hard time with that, find a coach. We can be really helpful. Coaches, I really do create that safe space for you to figure things out without the judgment. And we're just as interested in you being your best self as you are in being your best self. And that's whatever version you want to be, not what we want you to be.
And you have Tiff's website, but you also have the comments
Yes.
on and whatever platform you're on, we are responsive to comments when you send them in. We can provide you resources. We can help you to point yourself in the right direction to learn more about coaching or to find a coach that can really work for you. Right.
Yeah.
So that's definitely important. So one thing that you should be doing, you should be liking our podcast and you should be following our podcast. And if you don't, you'll be sorry.
You will
Right.
miss out.
Yep.
You will miss out. And we
All
will
right.
miss out because we want to hear from you. We will also
Absolutely.
miss out. We're very interested in what you have to say. So,
All right, folks. Well, until that next time we have a conversation, I'm Carl,
and I'm Tiff, and we're
and
keeping it real.
you should be.
Practice what we preach. Practice what you preach.